Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is denying claims that Homeland Security has identified 400 migrants with potential ties to ISIS. Multiple outlets had reported that hundreds of migrants were being brought into the United States by an ISIS-affiliated human smuggling network. Mayorkas shot down those claims today while visiting the southern border in Arizona. McCaul, who represents the Brazos Valley in Congress, is a member of the House Committee on Homeland Security, and he chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He spoke with News 3's Justin Dorsey earlier today to talk about border security and more.
Joining us now is Congressman Michael McCaul. You've been critical of President Biden's work on immigration reform and lack of focus on border security. What do you think needs to be done here, and do Republicans actually have a realistic plan to do it better than the Biden administration?
Well, yeah, and, you know, Justin, we had a plan and it was working under President Trump. We had a wall being erected. We had Remain in Mexico, which was working. You know, I was chairman of the Homeland Security Committee for 6 years, and prior to that, I was a federal prosecutor. If you adjudicate political asylum claims outside the United States, then they're not released in the United States. It's really that simple. What this administration changed was they allowed them to come in, and then they release them into society. We've had about 7 million enter and released into society, and about 2.5 million gotaways. Not to mention the ISIS-K threat, where around 8 ISIS-K members were arrested, and I can tell you they were up to no good. The threat of a terror attack in the United States is real. When you have a wide open border like this, the threats of whether it be terrorism or fentanyls, which are killing our children, to a criminal enterprise in the United States of America. Every day I'm hearing about some murder or rape taking place from an aggravated felon who Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden allowed to come in, and then they released him.
Congressman, you just got back from a trip to India focused on keeping the peace in the Pacific. What's at stake there, and why should Texans be paying attention to this right now?
Well, you know, Justin, the world is on fire, whether it be, Putin's aggression in Ukraine, to the Middle East and the Ayatollah in Iran, to the Pacific threat from the Chinese Communist Party. I was in India to meet with Prime Minister Modi, who just won re-election, and talked to him about his efforts to counter China. India is part of what's called the Quad, which was basically Japan, Australia, the United States, and Israel joined together to counter Communist China's aggression. We also made a very, I would say, spiritual trip to visit with the Dalai Lama, who normally doesn't meet with private audiences. We passed a bill that says they have a right to self-determination. As you may recall, the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan monks have been persecuted for their religion and their culture since 1959 by Communist China, when they came in and massacred the monks, and then the Dalai Lama fled to northern India. It was a very powerful and moving experience. The Chinese Communist Party want to replace him with their own Dalai Lama so they can eradicate the culture and religion that exists there. This is very consistent also, Justin, with my trip to Taiwan, visiting with President Lai, the new president of Taiwan, where I gave him as a proud Texan, a Stetson cowboy hat, and he proudly put that cowboy hat on because it stands for the rugged independence of the cowboy, the American West, and strength against threatening Chinese Communist Party, the dragon breathing down his neck.
Yeah, and this week the U.S. ambassador in Beijing said yesterday China's openly undermining diplomacy. Is it possible to make China an ally or at least a trusted trade partner here and not a threat?
Well, we tried that, Justin. We tried that for about 2 decades. But under the leadership of President Xi, I find that very difficult. In fact, he has broken our trust at every time, and they steal our intellectual property. They're building up their war machine. They're advancing in technology. And they are becoming a threat, but that's not the United States. That's President Xi's decision. And what we're in right now is what I would call a great power competition with China. And I want to see for my children and their children's, the new generation, I want to see the United States prevail in that great power struggle.
Congressman, I want to talk about what you said a second ago. You told us it was a badge of honor to be sanctioned by China last year. This week, they're kind of complaining openly about you meeting with the Dalai Lama. What should voters understand about the importance of supporting Taiwan here?
Well, Taiwan, it's very important not only for freedom and independence, but they also manufacture 90% of the advanced global semiconductor chips for the world. So if China invades Taiwan, and remember when I was there, Justin, they performed war game exercises surrounding the island with a blockade of battleships and aircraft carriers in a way to intimidate both me and the newly elected president, trying to get us to back down. And that's just, being a bully is not the right way. But imagine if China invaded Taiwan. When I talked to TSMC, the company there, they said that they would basically fall, that TSMC would have to stop manufacturing. That would put us in a sort of electronic shutdown, if you will, if none of these chips are going to be out for the global supply. If you thought COVID was bad, this would be a nightmare.
Congressman, switching gears just a little bit here. I'm sure you know all of the headlines right now. Aggie baseball, obviously a big thing in the headlines today. They'll take on Texas as a permanent opponent starting this next year. Of course, you represent both College Station and parts of Austin, but can we get a commitment that we will see you in maroon at Austin next spring? Because we want to see you out there, and we want to see you out there with some bubbles, too.
Well, that's a great question. I got one of these districts, but let me just tell you, when it comes to my loyalty, it's to my wife, Linda, who is a huge Aggie, and to my father-in-law, who's chairman of the Board of Regents at A&M, and you will be seeing me in maroon.
That is definitely what we wanted to hear. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me.